Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
None from staff, Madam Chair.
I don't think you're coming through the microphone.
Sorry, it's been a while. None from staff, Madam Chair.
All right. Disclosures by council. We have a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Board Member McCoy,
Yes.
Board Member Botel,
Yes.
Board Member Lawson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lanier,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All matters listed under the consent agenda are items considered to be routine, and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the councilperson so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Do we have anyone that want to remove something from the consent agenda?
I want to put some stuff to consent.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What you say?
I would have liked to move all three of these items to consent.
I agree.
Second.
All right.
Mr. Lowe has somewhere to be tonight, so
I'm sorry.
trying to get Mr. Lowe out of here.
All right.
So we are voting on moving it to consent?
Yeah, we have a motion and a second to move these items to consent. What items? Number 7A, 7B,
7C.
and 7C. All right, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Botel,
Yes.
Board Member Lawson,
Yes.
Board Member McCoy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lanier,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Move consent, Madam Chair.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Board Member Lawson,
Yes.
Board Member McCoy,
Yes.
Board Member Botel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lanier,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
I would hope we didn't have any comment cards.
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right, so let's go to discussions by City Manager, Executive Director.
And none from me, Madam Chair.
All right, discussions by District Attorney,
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
statements by the Mayor and Board.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I have one item.
Go ahead, Mr. Lowe.
Just to explain to the board, as you may know, the Mangonia Park agreement with regards to handling their wastewater is set to expire within a couple of months. We have been talking to
Speaking to the mic.
we have been talking to the manager at Mangonia Park, and we did see if they could possibly attend today. Instead, they have actually sent me a letter. We will send you a copy. And in the letter, they are asking for the two boards to meet jointly to discuss the issue.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Yes, I seen Mr. Metcalf and I told him that would be great because I think he owes us some money. At least the town does, and I would love to have that discussion because, you know, after we approved the settlement agreement, it was my understanding and reading of this agreement and our charter that agreement was against public policy. So I am open for the opportunity to sit down and have this conversation with the board members. And quite frankly, you know, I think we need to go into this very cautiously because from a historical perspective, Madam Chair, you may not have been on, but there was a discussion that actually happened in a joint meeting. In some kind of way, they left that joint meeting with the belief that they had some alternative agreement. So I want to make sure that when we go into agreement, there's nothing that's confusing. But, you know, some kind of way we got hung up on over $500,000 that they just kind of walked away from without us paying. And I just don't believe that I'm okay with that happening ever again. So I would openly accept a joint meeting.
All right, so Mr. Lowe and Mr. Evans can get with us and the other group to find out what would be a good date.
And
Yes, Madam Chair, we'll work with the board to look to maybe cannibalize one of your normally scheduled meetings for the joint session with the town of Mangonia Park, and then staff will put together a comprehensive memorandum that speaks to the chronological dealing since the original discussion that Mangonia Park references in their particular letter. So we'll work on getting that and then circulating the board the dates that we are thinking to be able to have that meeting.
Okay. Did you all have a comment? Mr. Lawson, Mr. McCoy? Did anyone?
He got it.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Lowe?
That's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Statements by the mayor and board. All right, here none, we have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Order the regular city council meeting for January 18, 2023, 6:50 p.m. Madam, roll call.
Mayor Ronnie Felder, Chairperson Kashamba Miller Anderson,
Present.
Chair Pro Tem Shirley Lanier,
Here.
Councilperson Broderick McCoy,
Here.
Councilperson Julia Botel,
Here.
Councilperson Douglas Lawson,
Here.
City Manager Jonathan Evans,
Present.
City Clerk Claudine Anthony is present, City Attorney Don Nguyen.
Present.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, we'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilwoman Chair Pro Tem Lanier.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I will ask that the city clerk read those items into the record.
I can't really hear you.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Yes, I will have the city clerk read those items into the record.
Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the board, staff is requesting that items 11A through 11K be pulled from the agenda with the exception of item 11E. So the only thing that would be left on the regular agenda under item number 11 is 11E.
All right, so we're postponing or just,
Yes, Madam Chair, we will be bringing these back at a future meeting.
okay. All right, any other items? Additions, deletions, substitutions?
And
All right, any disclosures by council? Have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk, adopt the agenda?
Councilperson McCoy,
yes.
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Consent agenda, all matters listed under this item are considered to be routine and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the councilperson so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Do we have any council people that would like to pull an item from the consent agenda? What's that, Noah? Is that me? Anyone want to pull anything from the consent agenda?
3A, please.
I didn't hear you.
3A.
3A. Anyone else? All right, have a motion to accept the consent agenda with 3A being pulled to regular agenda. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel, Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Remember to tell me about the comment cards. I don't remember if you said it.
Madam Chair, members of the board, there were no public comment cards on the consent agenda.
Okay. 3A.
Resolution number 014-23, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, revising the fee schedule for lien assessment requests and providing an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Have a motion? Do we have a motion to accept 3A?
Motion
not
to accept.
approve.
All right, guys. Everybody sleep up here or something?
Motion
Do
to
we have
accept
a second?
resolution
Second.
15-23.
What are we doing? Because I said not to approve, and
Huh?
Are
I
you-
thought you said you wanted it pulled off of the
because I
consent.
don't want to vote, because I don't want it to be approved. That's why I wanted it pulled.
Well, when we pull it during consent, we're pulling it off of consent and putting it on the regular.
And I just offered a motion not to approve it.
I
So,
didn't hear that.
okay.
I offered a motion to approve it.
Right, that's where we are. Because during the additions, deletions, you didn't ask for it to be pulled in, did you?
Okay. I pulled it off
Should it be
consent because I don't want to approve it. I want to offer a motion not to approve it. I don't want this to pass, in other words. That's why I offered a motion not to approve this item.
But don't we have to vote?
No, we
You
have a
accept the motion first.
We got a motion on the
So,
floor.
who you gonna select, me or,
I'm gonna select the way we normally do it.
okay.
Ms. Nguyen?
I mean,
Do you want to add something to that? My understanding, when you say you wanted to pull it during the time when we were talking about consent agenda items being pulled, when you said you wanted, and that's what we did, we voted on the consent agenda with 3A being pulled
Pulled off of consent.
off of consent, and I said it would go onto the regular agenda.
Okay.
And then now, we're listening to the item, and well, somebody made the motion to approve it, and I thought I understood the second to be for the same. And then we hear it, and then we vote on it.
Okay, so you didn't hear my motion, is what I'm saying.
But I don't know.
Okay. All right, well, I won't be voting for it, so.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to accept her motion, but I mean, I don't know how you can not hear her. Maybe we need to get our volume up, but
No, I heard her. I can hear.
you didn't hear me, is what I'm saying.
I didn't hear you say to not approve.
Okay, whatever. I mean, I don't know what to do. Like, did somebody else hear me say it? I mean, I know
Madam Chair, there's a motion and a second on the floor.
Mr. Sherman, did we get this, first of all, did we get the second for this?
Yes.
Ms. Clerk?
I did not hear a second.
Second.
So it's-
All right, Mr. Sherman, 3A.
Okay. As we start the budget process, as we do every year, we look at our cost of service and our revenues. We have a fee that we charge for lien searches. This is when individuals or corporations come in and they want to know if there are any outstanding liens on any of the parcels located within the city. We get about 1,000 lien search requests each year. Back in 2014, we increased the lien search fee from $50 to $120, and we have not touched that fee since. So again, you can see some of the fees up here. We've done some comparative looking. We're looking to go from $120 to $150. I do have a couple others that have come in after that. Palm Beach Gardens is actually at $175. And we actually pulled some HUD statements to see what is actually being charged for lien search fees or passed along for lien search fees, and we have everything is over $200. I got a $245, a $395. So these fees are not unreasonable. Clearly, our costs have increased over the last 8 years, certainly more than that 20% increase that we're looking for. And again, we bring in about 1,000, so raising it from $120 per lien search to $150 per lien search is about $30,000 that it would bring in to the city's general fund. And I can take any questions.
Madam
Madam
Chair.
Chair,
Mr. McQuindon, Ms. Lanier.
So, Mr. Evans and Mr. Sherman, I really want your attention on this. Please show me in the backup where this exists, because had I not pulled this off of the agenda, off of consent, nobody up here on this board would have even had this lien search rates. And it's not right to come before the board when you have no backup. What I see here is a resolution and an old contract that was executed by Ms. Ruth Jones. So when you don't give us all of the information, and I'm looking here in the backup, all I see is a cover page and an agreement from years ago. It's like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, you don't even give me enough information to know whether or not staff or whatever the name of this company has done any kind of study to address this. But all of a sudden, you pop up a lien search study. This is no different than when you bought us a $100 million contract for good companies when you didn't have all of the exhibits and backup attached. So I don't know what kind of
Mr.
colleague.
McCoy.
Let me finish talking, please.
Madam
I don't know
Chair.
what kind of colleagues that I have
Hold on 1 minute.
that sit here and accept something to be true and there's no backup documentation. The only thing that's here is a cover page, a resolution, and a contract from when Ruth Jones signed it, and we know how long ago that's been. It's just like they will accept something without even asking a question. I had no idea that this existed. Not that I'm willing to support it, but come on, help me out. I'm a member of a governing body who's being asked to vote on something that's not even in the backup.
Madam Chair, may I respond?
Yes, Mr. Sherman?
All right, first I'm going to start with the good companies. Our agenda system lists every date and time when every document is attached. You've made that claim a number of times that those documents were not there. I personally went back and checked them. Those documents have been there every time since before that meeting took place. So I don't know why you continue to go back to that, but that is not a relevant conversation in this. In my memo, I said they're upwards to $200. Does it matter what Hollandale Beach charges? I really don't think it does.
Let us decide that, not you. You don't make the decisions here.
Listen, excuse me, Mr. McCoy, I'm presenting that. If you don't like the way it's presented, I get it. During agenda review, you asked for a scale. So I went back and I put together an actual scale. We had this information, but it's really not, it puts it in context. But again, I don't know how Hollandale Beach runs theirs. I don't know how Palm Beach Gardens runs theirs. But our costs are our costs, and we're trying to cover those costs. And again, you brought this up at agenda review, and that's why I put it together. I didn't realize I was going to get attacked for putting together a presentation for you that you requested. But the memo says up to $200. That's where they're averaging. They're all going up towards the $200 mark.
All right, Ms.
You're
Lanier?
done? I want to follow up.
Okay.
Okay, so let me be very clear, Mr. Evans. First of all, when we get an agenda item, we're asked to review it and be able to come here and have some sort of thoughtful discussion on it. What I have on the agenda backup is a cover page, a resolution, and a contract, which was at least back in 2010. There is no information provided to a council member who has to make a vote on it that's going to provide any sort of study or comparative that was done. Why I asked this to be pulled, because it's not right. We had a council person to offer a motion to accept it, and she has not even done any research or backup whatsoever. So I apologize if you don't appreciate that I actually read. Now the fact that you show me some study that you come up with, I mean, don't be mad at me because I asked for the information. This information should have been provided to us beforehand, not to mention some sort of study that necessitates beforehand that this is necessary that we raise these fees. I'm doing what I think people elected to me to do. And to your point about good companies, I just sat in a room this afternoon with Liz McBride, Deputy Manager Liz McBride, Procurement Director, and Ms. Tanisha Boynton, and we specifically went back to that good companies item, and we realized that none of the exhibits were uploaded to that public agenda. Whether it was done on the internal, perhaps, but for me as a council person, Mr. Manager, please have your staff to come up and address this, but clearly, don't suggest that I'm lying or being disingenuous.
Mr. McCoy, I will gladly invite you over to my laptop.
Well, I don't
You
care
can
about
go
your
look at
laptop.
them.
Point
I
of
don't care.
order, please.
I don't care.
It's not
But don't tell me that I'm being
Mr. Sherman
disingenuous.
and
Mr. Evans, you need to line up your employee.
And Mr. McCoy, I'm not upset that you're asking questions.
Yes, you are.
Never I'm upset at that. But
Mr. Evans,
Chairman.
Mr. Sherman,
Research that
Mr.
you
Sherman,
have.
hold on.
Mr. Sherman.
Mr. Evans,
Madam Chair.
Yes.
With regards to the item that's before you, that is the item that the board is discussing, which with respect to the good companies, if there's any questions with regards to those particular items, we can look at that information and we can provide that. I was not aware of any conversation or meeting that occurred today with Councilperson McCoy, nor any discussion with the deputy manager. So I have to circle back with staff to find out what is there truth to the statement. But the item before you is the lien search rates. I would say to the board that I did have conversations with staff after reviewing the agenda item, and some of those items being pulled is because there needs to be more thought put into the information that is being provided. It needs to be comprehensive. It needs to compare it to our comparable cities. And we are going to bring forward a resolution that when we bring items for the board to consider, whether it's an increase in fees or benefits or services that are being provided, we have 5 or 6 peer agencies that we compare ourselves to. So that's going to be standard practice as we look to move forward. But again, if there is issue or heartburn with regards to this item, then this item can clearly be tabled for further discussions and conversations, and we can bring you the costs associated with providing the service. But I don't want to get into a situation where staff and the elected officials are going back and forth in a manner that creates for contention. If there's an issue, we'll work through the issues. We're supposed to be on the same page. We want to work to resolve whatever the questions that the board members may have, and then bring something that you can either vote your conscience in favor or in opposition of the item.
Madam Chair?
wait, we have some talking in the audience. Remember, your voices carry up here, so please keep it down.
Madam Chair,
I thought I was next.
Hold on 1 minute. So, Ms. Lanier and then Mr. Lawson, and I think I heard Dr. Botel.
please, yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Lanier.
I just wanted to say that I asked several questions about this item in the agenda review and got the answers that were satisfactory to me. But to the other point, there are numerous times where not this particular issue, and not you in particular, but just in general, in terms of items that come to the board have been lacking in backup so that we can make informed decisions. I have to agree with that, but not with this particular item and not with particularly you. But I want to say that that has been an issue for us in terms of coming to meetings, either getting information the same day or not having information. It does not happen a lot, but it does happen. And the thing about it is that some of the items that it does happen on are very significant items. So I will say that, but I was fine with the explanation that you gave today in regards to this particular item.
Mr. Lawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Evans, welcome back. This is the same questions that I asked in my agenda review as well in regards to the rate. So it's trying to just make sure we have as much information when we're making the decision, putting in the backup and trying to have it there. Now, my question is to have this information placed into the backup prior to it going out to the public is difficult because there may be questions that are happening during agenda review that staff would want to make sure we address, but having detailed information and so that we can make a conscious decision, because I do, Mr. Sherman, care about what happens in Hollandale Beach because it gives me a conscious decision to say, hey, these are what the other municipalities are doing, so we can actually be fair with the pricing that we're setting with liens. I'm hesitant to vote on any type of increases for business owners, for residents, for anything, because there's other streams of income that we have not addressed as a city. So I'm actually not going to be supporting this because this is the same question I asked, and I haven't even got a chance to take a look at this. I'm looking up at the screen to see what the comparable cities are doing, and I know that staff just gave us a number to set, but I want to be able to make that decision with a clear mind, knowing that it's in the best interest of the residents, of the business owners. And Mr. Sherman, you do know the budget better than any of us, so it's just making sure we can all make the decision together and the electeds can vote on this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Dr. Votel?
Thank you. I want to make it perfectly clear to my colleagues that I have a thorough and complete understanding, having had a conversation with Mr. Sherman about this. So I made the motion with the full and complete understanding of what I was motioning on. So thank you for giving me that opportunity to explain why I made the motion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for this item 3A? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
No.
Councilperson Lawson,
No.
Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes,
Motion approved.
Thank you.
thank you. Item 6A.
Presentation on the status of Fire Station 87 at Blue Heron and Avenue H West. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, Mr. Evans? If
Madam
we had
Chair,
to get you a
members.
better microphone.
Madam Chair and members, at this time, I'd like to turn the presentation on the exciting update on Fire Station 87 to Fire Chief John Curd for an update. Chief?
Good evening, Council. John Curd, Fire Chief. As requested by Council, looking for regular updates on status of some of these capital projects, staff decided that this was a good time to bring some of these updates to you as it relates to Fire Station 88 and 87. 88, just quickly, the rendering we provided prior to original construction is seen here up on the screen. And basically from the construction that you all have seen on Congress and Blue Heron, that rendering is representative of what you will actually see as a finished product. Is there a way for you to play this, Walter? Never mind. As we move forward to Station 87, we just kind of wanted to let you know what that draft site plan is going to look like and what the elevation is. This is where Station 87 is going to be located, on the corner of West 28th Street and Avenue H West, basically in its existing location. And this gives you kind of that site plan view of what it's going to look like. As it relates to the rendering, these are the renderings that have been provided. Again, Station 87 will be located on the first floor. Riviera Beach's Division of Emergency Management's EOC will be located on the second floor, and we're excited to have that space activated, not only as an EOC, but opportunities for HOAs and department meetings that can occur at that location. There's also a memorial that's going to be out front. This station's theme is going to be a dedication to the men and women who have built Riviera Beach Fire Rescue from day one. We're going to have plaques honoring all of our retirees. And in that glass vestibule, it's going to be a pseudo museum. We're going to have different images that are going to basically memorialize those individuals that came before us, that laid the foundation for what we are today. Just to give you some of the next steps to kind of keep you up to date with what's happening, we expect the completion of temporary Station 87, located on the Wells site, first part of March. Completion of Station 88 in early April. Then there's some tricky relocations that got to occur. We have a relocation of Station 87 to the temporary site, administrative staff to the 88 site, and then shutting down Station 88 at Public Works and moving that to the new site. In April, we expect the demolition of Station 87. We are in the permit process and trying to get ahead of that so that once we vacate that station, we can quickly move forward with demolition. And we hope to see site work and the station coming out of the ground for Station 87 and the EOC summer of 2023. So that's just a brief update. We felt it was a good point in time for us to update staff. And if you do not have any questions, that concludes my presentation.
I do have a question. Is the temporary station on schedule?
The temporary station is slightly behind schedule. We ran into some issues with the hurricanes that existed out on the West Coast. A lot of the laborers and a lot of the equipment and supplies were actually diverted to the West Coast. so it created some issues for us as it relates to that site, but we're probably going to be 2 months behind schedule when it's all said and done with that project.
Okay, yeah, because I was wondering, because there were many, many days when I would pass by there and nothing was going on, no one was there. So I almost felt like the one on Congress and Blue Heron was being built much quicker than just the temporaries.
There were some very strong-worded emails that shared that same sentiment that we noticed as well.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you for the update. Any other comments from the board?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So Chief, that temporary station, so it's just about 2 months behind, you said, so it's supposed to be completed December, January, and it will be completed in March, or?
Yes,
Okay.
the contractor is
Right.
telling us February,
Yep.
but I would not tell you that. I would prefer to over-deliver than.
So that temporary station is going to be March, and then you're just going to kind of play musical chairs. We're trying to get our firefighters moved around before.
That is
then.
correct. It's going to be a very busy 6 months.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Chief. Item 6B.
Presentation by Inner City Innovators. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, Mr. Evans? I'm sorry, Ms. Lanier?
This item comes before you for a program that is near and dear to my heart that is in the city of Riviera Beach, and it is the Inner City Innovators, but actually they're also called the Hope Dealers, and they have been in the city of Riviera Beach for about almost 3 years now, and they have done a lot of work in terms of helping and mentoring young men and women in the city. So I wanted to bring him up to give you an update of some of the work that they've done and completed in the city.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. My name is Ricky Aiken, and I just want to start by saying how extremely grateful I am to be here and for the support we've received from the council as a whole, especially Councilwoman Lanier, for bringing us in. And I brought a presentation, if you want to bring that up.
You have it back there?
I guess I get started without it.
Okay.
We all know that homicide is the leading cause of death for boys and young men of color. And most oftentimes than not, that homicide happens at the hands of young men that look just like the young men we're working with, black and brown boys. And if you've ever heard me talk, you've always heard me say that real change happens when the people who need it lead it. No one has more incentive to change the conditions in our community than the young people who call these communities home. And no one has more power to change what we see happen in our communities than the young men who call these communities home. It's just all about supporting them and getting them the support they need to really embody the change they want to see in their community. And that's what Inner City Innovators is all about. Our mission is to inspire and empower inner city youth to embody the change they want to see in their community. And we do that in 3 ways. First and foremost is through our Hope Dealer Mentoring Program. And our Hope Dealer Mentoring Program is a hybrid program focused on leadership development, social emotional learning, and community service. Leadership development because our young men are oftentimes coming from homes where they're under-supported, under-resourced. We send them to school from communities riddled by gun violence and trauma, and we expect them to compete at the same level as their counterparts that are coming from more privileged backgrounds. And that's tough to do for anybody. So our number one priority is helping our young men take control of their own life and direct it in a way that'll see them have the best outcomes possible considering where they're coming from. Our second goal, social emotional learning, we want to teach our young people how to process their environments in ways that aren't self-destructive. When you're living in a home with no father, you're watching your mom struggle with drug addiction, you don't know how to process that. You're going to go to school, you're going to act out, you're going to hang out in your community with people who you feel you can relate to. And in a community where you lack capital, financial capital, Respect is the only capital you have, and our young people are oftentimes willing to do anything for the respect of their peers. So when you turn on the news and you see instances of gun violence, it's not because these kids are evil, they're criminals, or anything of that nature. They're doing what they feel they have to do to survive with the cards they've been dealt. So our Hope Dealer Mentoring Program is really a program that walks with these young people, helps them come up with individualized learning plans, surrounds them with men that can relate to what they're going through. And so since being in Riviera Beach, when we first got started, we started with 15 young people. We're now up to 30. Gotcha. Thank you. We're now up to 30. This year, we launched the Lady Hope Dealer Mentoring Program for girls and young women between the ages of 10 and 18, and we've spent $281,000 in the first year we've been at the Brooks Center. And our mentoring program, though it happens, and if you know any young people that would be primary beneficiaries of our program, send them to us. They'll have to complete a survey to make sure they qualify as high risk, but send them to us. Wednesday nights, our young men are gathered from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Richard and Annie Brooks Center, and the young women on Thursday nights at the same time. And so our plan is to eventually empower one of our young people that are from this city to lead mentoring efforts in this city. Since being here, we've participated in the parades, seeing Councilperson Doug Lawson at his mental health event. Anything that the city's doing, we want to be their support, and we want to have these young people supporting, because that's what it's about. So everything we're doing is really about walking with them. Our motto is free and alive through age 25. Every young person in our program, they have access to our services until they reach age 25. And that's unlike any program. When you look at any other mentoring program in Palm Beach County, the most time they probably boast is an hour or two or a few hours a month. Our mentoring program, we're spending at least 8 hours per mentee in our program. And this is the kind of support our young people need. If you don't know anything about me, I didn't go to school for anything that we're attempting. I'm actually a product of the situation that we're working to combat. I was a high school dropout myself that followed in the footsteps of my dope dealing older brothers until I had mentors come into my life and show me a better way. So everything we're doing is based on our understanding of our young people and just patience and faithfulness in their lives. So I invite all of our councilmen and women to come by our program. I don't think anything will do it more justice than you seeing it face to face and talking to the young people and hearing from them the impact we're having in their life. And I'd offer that same to residents if they want to shoot me an email at ricky.aiken@innercityinnovators.org. I can coordinate a time for you to come in and check out a program that's in your city. And I'll say this. We ask nothing from this city to run our program. Just give us the building. We want to be an asset. I believe in Riviera Beach. I believe in the leaders of this city. And for me, it's the capital city because it's where my people call home. So we want to continue offering our services free of charge because it's needed, but also because we didn't create the conditions that define life in our community, and we won't be able to fix it alone. If our people are on the ground doing the work, we're going to be requesting from outside communities to support the work. So I'll open up for any questions you may have now.
All right, any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Akins, first and foremost, I want to commend you because I've seen firsthand some of the young men that you've supported, mentored, and grown just from this community. So thank you for coming to this community and doing everything you have.
Thank you.
Speaking to the kids at the Restoring the Village event this Monday, that's exactly what I want to see. On Cunningham Park, 400 kids and parents sitting there talking about support, mental health, mentoring was amazing. So I want to continue to work with you in whatever you need to do. A lot of us probably haven't been able to make to your meetings because we're normally here in this chamber during those same times.
Yeah.
But whenever anything outside of those meetings are happening, please just keep us posted. Send an email, phone call, text message, and let us know. And I will be there. And I'm sure my colleagues will show up as well. So again, thank you. I commend you, and keep putting that effort into growing our city.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you all for your support.
Thank you so much, Ricky, for your work, your hard work, and your team for your hard work. I see your board of directors, and we really appreciate the fact that you came to Riviera Beach 3 years ago. You're still thriving, and we're still benefiting from you coming here, so we appreciate it very much.
Yeah, and we got some great things coming forward. We're constantly being trained by a national agency called Roca Impact Institute that's been doing work in our communities for probably longer than I've been alive. And they're helping us retool our programs to have even more impact. So we're really looking forward to, right now we're in a process of kind of going through our programs and just becoming more data aware, and everything we learn we're going to be bringing here first. So we're thankful for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. All right, item 8A.
Ordinance number 4217, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Florida, relating to the provision of fire services, facilities, and programs throughout the incorporated areas of Riviera Beach, Florida, authorizing the imposition and collection of fire service assessments against property, providing certain definitions, including a definition for the term fire service assessment, establishing a procedure for imposing fire service assessments, providing that fire service assessments constitute a lien on assessed property upon adoption of assessment roll, providing that the lien for a fire service assessment collected pursuant to sections 197.3632 and 197.3635 Florida statutes upon perfection shall attach to the property on the prior January 1st, the lien date for ad valorem taxes, providing that a perfected lien shall be equal to, in rank and dignity with the liens of all state, county, district, or municipal taxes and assessments, and superior in dignity to all other prior liens, mortgages, titles, and claims, authorizing the imposition of interim assessments, providing a procedure for the collection of fire service assessments, providing a mechanism for the imposition of assessments on government property, providing for codification, providing for repeal of laws in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Motion to approve ordinance number 4217.
Second.
All right, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair and members of the board, if I could, Director of Finance and Administrative Services, Mr. Rand, this presentation.
Good evening again, Randy Sherman, Director of Finance. This is ordinance 4217 on second read. There have been no changes since October 19th when the first reading was approved, and staff recommends approval of this item.
All right, public comment card?
Glenn Spiritus.
I'm not sure if the mayor is listening, but good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff, City Manager, and my fellow residents. I'm here to speak tonight,
Can you state your name, please?
Glenn Spiritus, 5540 North Ocean Drive.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm here to speak tonight about an email that I received pertaining to the formation of a fire district and the funding of said fire district. Usually municipalities have two reasons for creating a fire district. One is because they've reached their funding level for bonding, and we don't know whether or not this city has reached its limit or it's close to reaching its limit. And the other reason is because they don't want to show it on the general fund for taxes, so they show it in a different area, and usually they don't lower the taxes after they've done that, so they're double dipping. They charge you on the taxes, and then they charge you a fee or a tax through this new form of a district. And I want to make it very clear that I support all our first responders. I'm thankful for their service and putting their lives on the line every day. I pray for them, and I wish them the best, and they should always have whatever they need to do their job. But it's very important when I hear that we're not going to get a firehouse on Singer Island unless we form this district. This is ridiculous. I don't understand why we can't just bond. I was shown renderings 4 years ago from a councilwoman telling us that this firehouse was going to be built immediately. Obviously, it didn't happen. I don't know why we haven't bonded and done so. We need that new firehouse on Singer Island, the same way you need new firehouses on the mainland. This is an essential service. This is not, a playground. This is an essential service to save lives. This is very, very important. I urge you to please look into this. I want to make sure that if you do form this district, that you look at your ad val, and you reduce your taxes on the general fund, the amount of money that you're transferring over to this new district. I also want to make sure that everyone is charged equally, that you don't charge one area more than another area for different services or capital improvements. It should be a citywide assessment. It shouldn't be done based upon where you live, how much money you have, or how much money you don't have. We're one city. So please take this into consideration. And once again, God bless our men and women that support us and put their lives on the line every single day. Please make sure everyone in this city is treated equally, and we give everything to our first responders that they need to do their jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to close that? Thank you. All right, is that it for public comment?
Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes public comment.
All right, any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I got some comments as well as some questions. Mr. Chairman, the first reading was what date? October?
October 19th, I believe.
Do you know? Well, I don't recall supporting
Let me
this.
confirm, please. October 9th.
I don't recall supporting this then, and I'm vehemently opposed to this. And thank you, Mr. Spiritus, for making sure to clarify that this has never, ever been about a public safety issue or the men and women of our fire department. And this is very, very complex, and I would hope that members of the public as well as the board member pays attention to this. And I would like to really draw the comparison to this fire assessment, no different than what the state of Florida did when they created the Florida Lottery in 1988. As we all know, the state of Florida is responsible for providing public education as well as our county school district. But up until the Florida Lottery was created, we were funding education. Now we create the Florida Lottery and we use this mantra that lottery dollars fund education. Well, we had the obligation to fund education before the lottery came about. No different than we have the obligation to fund fire services before this fire assessment is even proposed. So all we're simply doing here is swapping funds. We're literally trying to take fire off of the general fund and create our own fire assessment. And I particularly have an issue with it. I think we have to first address spending before we now try to open up a new tranche of money. Secondly, the item of a special assessment really bothers me, members. We know that our community particularly is plagued by investors who get properties at auctions on tax deed sales. We are going to pile all of these assessments onto property tax bills and make it that much more difficult. What's being proposed, and I know we had two of those other items deleted, those two other items added additional $200 plus $260, I believe. Now with the fire assessment, we're looking at adding another $132 to a single family home. What you're going to do is create a situation where a person can't opt out of the fire assessment, they can't opt out of the trash, they can't opt out of the stormwater. Once it's on your bill, once it's on your tax bill, you have to pay that just like you have to pay the special assessment over at, I don't know any other I can't recall any other non-Avalon special assessments that's on our bill, but that becomes a basis for a tax lien onto your property. And me, in a community where much of our community has just went away from the original settlers here in Riviera Beach based on folks coming in as investors and buying up tax certificates and individuals losing their property. I can't in good faith support something like this. We have to get back to making sure that we have a budget. And I don't know what the budget means for the city of Riviera Beach, but the budget for me is if I have $100, I know I have to be able to make that $100 stretch until I'm able to replenish it again. We can't just create a budget and then figure out a way to now offset that budget by let's create a special assessment, but because we can. Just because we got it right doesn't make it right. And I think most importantly, what we're going to see here is that these taxes are going to create more burdens in the long game. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. Like, I don't see how we could possibly bring something forward like a special assessment for fire without first addressing the spending. Because truthfully, it's our responsibility to fund fire, just like it's the state and Palm Beach County School District's responsibility to fund education. We shouldn't try to pick up and bring in another tax. Think about what we just did, members. We did a whole lot of work and we gave staff a real charge to bring us back a budget that lowered their millage rate. We went from 8.45 mills down to 8.35 mills. In essence, that may have saved, at best, a single-family home in the city of Riviera Beach $7 to maybe $20 in their overall bill per year. Only for us to come back and tack on assessment after assessment after assessment. We're basically just moving money around, but we're making it even more hard and restrictive on a homeowner by actually adding that assessment to the tax bill. I can't support it for those reasons, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Do you have any other questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
With respect to the item that's before you this evening, you have the authorizing ordinance and then you have the resolutions. Staff is moving forward with a public information campaign where we will host 3 meetings with the public to communicate all aspects associated with a proposed fire assessment, as well as some of the challenges that are associated with the facilities that our fire personnel are currently in. And so we are going to encourage the community to come out to those meetings because we can answer and address all those questions and concerns. That ultimately has to come back to you all to update you on the conversations that we had with the community and realize that the assessment is a mechanism that you all have to vote on annually. So if there's a situation where it's implemented and it's $132 this year, and we have a windfall of economic redevelopment in our community, you have the ability as the board to adjust that accordingly. Also, there's components, the fire assessment can only be utilized for the provision of fire services. It can't be utilized for anything else. And the monies that we are collecting or anticipated to collect as a result of this assessment would be to go to bond to pay for the fire facilities that we have to move forward with. We can all agree, and I think uniformly throughout the community, that every single one of our fire facilities, and every one of our facilities for that matter, are at the end of their useful life. Had the can not been kicked this far down the road, invariably would be in a different situation. The same fire station that you are talking about approving 6-7 years ago was $8 million, is now $18 million. Invariably, it comes to a point where if we don't look at all options available to us, we have to have other conversations that are a lot more challenging. But we are going to have those discussions with the community. We're going to provide all the information and then come back to the board and share with you what some of the community's sentiments are with respect to the fire assessment. And the Chief, Mr. Sherman, and I, as well as some of our consultants, will help communicate that. So these are the mechanisms that allow for us to move in that process. It doesn't say that the fire assessment starts today.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So I guess first thing, Mr. Spiritus, thank you for your comments because you echoed the feelings of making sure people understand the support for our firefighters is unmatched. We have one of the best fire departments in the world. And Thank you, and also give my regards to your wife as well. But I have to agree with Councilman McCoy. Mr. Evans just stated we're going to do a extensive community charrette conversation and discussion to educate our residents on this tax. We're going to go out to discuss with them the options, to talk to them about what's the benefits, and also to outline what's going to be the cost and the impact. But I would want that conversation to happen before we voted on this, to actually add this assessment, because the residents may not be inclined to actually supporting an additional tax or assessment. And then also my second question is, have we exhausted every avenue of fundraising for the fire stations? Have we looked at all programs available, whether it's bonding, whether it's grants, whether it's additional support? Because right now, out of the fire station that we just built at $20 million, what amount of that actually came from federal funding from grants? What was the total dollar amount that we received in support? I believe it was just over $1 million of the 20. If you could answer that, Mr. Chairman.
On 88, we didn't have any federal money, I don't believe. It's 87 that we...
87, okay. So it's really trying to make sure that we've exhausted every other arena, because in the agenda review I discussed the parking study, and I know Mr. Evans said we're going to move forward with the parking and paid parking and parking garages, which can only allocate dollars towards the actual parking facilities. But if we're building up our entire downtown and we're covering some of the expenses in different areas and filling the gap, then we can actually be able to afford this. So, Mr. Chairman, you are one of the brightest finance individuals I know, so I know we can find these dollars without having to tax the residents, because we just fought to make sure we brought the ad valorem tax down, our tax rate down, and now we're just going to be adding it right back on at an increased amount. So we can't say that we're going to lower the millage rate and then add a tax that's actually not equal across the board to all of our residents, because if we're going to equally equate $132 across the board to all the residents, and we're going to lower the millage rate by a quarter of a point, that's not proportionate for the income-based residents in our community. So a resident making $200,000 can afford this $130 versus a resident making the lowest median income, second lowest median income in Palm Beach County, may not be able to afford this $132, where it's the difference between their power bill and paying this fire assessment. So what I would like to task staff and ask for colleagues is that we find an alternative to getting this done in an expedited fashion, because Chief Kurt, our firefighters deserve it. As I said, from day one, we have to get it done. We've already got 2 going up. But by the end of next year, we're going to have 2 fire stations. We need 2 more. But what other means can we do that without burdening our residents and pushing them out of a community? Because we're developing without displacing. And this is part of the process of starting to displace our residents by continuing to tax them at a disproportionate rate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
No.
Councilperson McCoy. No. Councilperson Boto.
Yes.
Pro Tem Lanier.
Yes.
Chair Millie Anderson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Item 8B.
Ordinance number 4219, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending Chapter 22 of the Code of Ordinances entitled Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 6, entitled Road Impact Fee, by updating and revising Section 22-187, entitled Computation of the Amount of Road Impact Fee, providing for severability and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We're going to finish this item here, and then we'll go to public comment. Okay. All right. Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair, Director of Finance and Administrative Services, Mr. Randy Sherman, to make this presentation.
Yes, again, this is the second reading of Ordinance 42.
You want to pull it up?
What happened? Here we go. This is the second reading of Ordinance 4219 for our impact fees. First reading, again, was in October 19th. There have been no changes to this item. Staff recommends approval.
Any comments or questions from the board? All right, Madam Clerk, please keep the conversations down.
Madam Chair, can I get in, please?
Huh?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Okay, members, I can't support this item either. I mean, here we are with another increase in a fee that we provide, and I think the issue is much greater than just raising more taxes and raising more fees. I think we have to first address and take a comprehensive overall look. We almost make it impossible. You know, one of the things I realize, and I got to agree with staff on this, I have no idea, and we've not figured out exactly why some of these were not codified in the code, but for me, that doesn't justify us increasing impact fees. Particularly, right, I can't trace the money that we collect from a builder or a developer or someone that puts in a permit application back to the actual improvements of infrastructure. Like, I don't see it. Something's not right. Like, there should be a specific enterprise forensic audit on some of this stuff. If we've collected impact fees over 20 years, like, I don't know, like, where that money goes, Mr. Sherman. And I'm really curious to see, because we have a lot of needs. Certainly, I'm not saying we don't need to levy it, but we need to be able to have a correlation between the monies that we've collected in impact fees over the last 7-8 years to the projects. It doesn't match up. It really doesn't. I don't know if monies were being swept out of the capital plan or out of the impact fee fund back into general revenue, but I can't support us just continuing to raise fees because we are cash strapped. And I don't know if people want to admit it, but we are broke. Simply put by that gentleman, that's exactly why we're trying to create other avenues, which are only when a city uses it when they've reached or close to their borrowing capacity. So y'all continue to have parties and all of this stuff, but members of the public, don't you know everything isn't free? It's going to cost us in the long term. And we're making it easy for people not to be able to live in this city. If you're a native of Riviera Beach, I challenge you to look down your street. See how many of those people that were there 25 years ago. Homeowners are being replaced with tenants. And I think it's going to be, and it's becoming even more easier for us to do that with these assessments and increasing fees. We're priced out of paradise. That's all I have.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Evans or Mr. Sherman, can you explain what is the impact fees, what does that go toward?
Yes, Madam Chair, and I will have Mr. Sherman go ahead and communicate that. But one of the things I do want to make it abundantly clear is that the impact fees are associated with the impact that is derived as a result of new construction and construction activities. What has happened is the city has left millions, tens of millions of dollars on the table by not updating the fees associated with the impact. So you are charging impact fees for police, fire, library services based on 2004 prices in 2023. Who has to subsidize and make up the difference? The taxpayer in 2023. So when you don't move the impact fees to be current or even remotely close to current, it has to be subsidized in somehow, in some way. And so there is actually state law that governs exactly how much you can levy as it relates to impact. And the impact fee can only be used to associated with the impact that is as a result of the development that occurred. It can't be used for anything that the city thinks it's fine. It's very restricted based in state law as well as our code. Mr. Sherman, if you want to provide some additional commentary to that too.
Yeah, well, the only thing I would add is we do track each individual impact fee by type. So I can tell you how much we collected for parks, how much we've spent out of that parks, what projects we've spent that on. And we certainly can go back and build that. But if you notice in the annual CIP, you will see that there are projects that have been funded by the impact fees. Over the last 10 years, we really haven't brought in a lot of impact fees. There hasn't been a lot of building. But where we see the most of the impact fees come in, it's in the parks area. We see a lot for roads and public facilities, but we see very little coming in for police and fire and library and the like. But that's certainly, again, by statute and by ordinance, we have to track those. We do track those, and we do report that all separately. So again, I'd be happy to do that if that's what the council desires. But as Mr. Evans said, these fees, again, have not been increased since 2004, and even with the study and with this increase, we still are not even scratching the true fiscal impact of new development from these impact fees, because you can only increase the fees a certain dollar amount. The legislation says you can't go more than 50%. So when you go from 2004 and you're trying to get to 2022, 50% does not get you there. So again, this is really just small steps to ultimately work up to where those fees should be.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
And Mr. Sherman or Mr. Evans, the impact fees, just to be clear, where can they be actually used? I know that you have an itemized budget for what are collected and where they can be used, but just overarching, if the impact fee is collecting on a residential property, where could we assign those fees?
Well, again, you're going to see a residential property, so it'll have impact on parks, and we'll collect a little bit on parks and roads and facilities, but it's small dollar amounts. The way the ordinance is written, it really has to be a city asset, city facility, city equipment. It's not operation. We never put impact fees into the general fund as far as operational dollars. And I'm going to say, and I'm probably going to be wrong, but I'm going to say we just did Callaway. Is that the one we just did? And I think we may have used some impact fees there. But those are the types of, we use it a lot to match. It's a good matching fund. And again, because it's dedicated to a specific purpose, it can sit there for a couple of years. We get a grant, we can match, and and try to leverage that.
So versus the tax, the assessment going directly to the residents, this is based on new construction. This is going to be based on office building and some of the development. We're looking at reimagining Riviera Beach, and our fees, impact fees, have been kind of out of whack for a number of years. So we haven't maximized on the development that's happening. So with the new construction that's coming, I can support this impact fee because we have to generate revenue in some fashion. Not on the current taxpayers, but on the new business that's coming. We have we have $500 million of development that we're doing alone. In addition to all the development that's going to happen up and down Broadway Avenue E. So with the residential, non-residential, office buildings, all this development, these fees would be equated to actually benefiting and building up the community. So I can support these impact fees and the increase on the impact fees. It's just finding additional ways to make sure we're supporting our current residents and increasing our number of homeowners and eliminating so many renters from our community. So providing those resources, which I know Ms. Anita's doing on her side with the CDC and the CRA. But that's where it's making sure whatever dollars that we're going to charge, I don't mind charging these developers the ability to beautify our community. If they're going to invest into our community, help us beautify it by investing with us. So the impact fees and the new development, I can support this. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? All right, Madam Clerk.
Councilperson McCoy?
No.
Councilperson Martell?
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, thank you.
You're going to go to public comment, right?
Yes, we're going to do public comment card. Public comment shall begin at 7:30 p.m. unless there is no further business of the City Council, which in that event, it shall begin sooner. In addition, if an item is being considered at 7:30 p.m., then comments from the public shall begin immediately after the item has been concluded. Please be reminded the City Council Board has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the front desk. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the City Council chairperson may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium. If in a minute, Again, my agenda is reading something different here. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Please look at my agenda. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Lloyd Brown, Bill Wolotek, Danielle Underwood.
Yeah, my name is Lloyd Brown. How you doing, Mr. Evans? Welcome back. I know that I hear y'all talking about there's no communication between Mr. Evans, I guess his staff, and y'all. He don't give you enough information. Same damn thing going on between the citizens and y'all. No difference. So, I mean, I don't see why you complaining. We complain and you don't do anything about it. So what makes you think that it should be something done between what Mr. Evans don't bring up to where you know exactly? Because when we come in here, we got to sit in and listen to all this gibberish back and forth, back and forth. But when my time I come up here, if I run over the time, you're going to make me sit down. And what I might have to say, I think is more relevant than what you people have been doing the whole time you've been in office. And I'm going to tell you something. I would talk about my dog, so this lady behind me coming up next to talk about hers, but I'm not going to tell you about no dog. I'm going to tell you about in your district project. There are houses coming up in little spaces. There are places where they're putting trailers behind houses, and I didn't think that was allowed. But the people want to talk about my yard. You know, I tell you like this, everything in my yard is legal. You might can call the code enforcement on me, but you can't call the police for a lot of things that I see that happens in the neighborhood. Now, I understand this group that came in here talking about, you know, crime and what's happening to the kids. Let me tell you, any community, white, black, I don't care what it is, when there's unemployment, you're going to have crime. So it's like whatever you're doing with these people, if you don't get them employed, you're not going to solve that problem. And I mean, to come over here, you know, I like talk to spam calls. You know what? But I like coming over here. Same thing. Same thing as the spam calls. You know, I tell them about I'm in the office like where we got people who are like crazy. So if you call me, I'm just on the phone because I'm a crazy person in this office. That's how I do the spam people. Like, because coming over here, I don't really care about y'all because y'all don't care about us. All those promises you made, them promises you didn't keep. And the people, you know, they're going to change that. And I can understand these people out there don't want this thing to go on out there at the golf course. I mean, that's them. They live there. I live here more than anybody, I think, in this whole building. I've been in Riviera Beach, and I'll be 69 in April. But you know what? All that talk, project, and y'all doing don't mean nothing if you ain't making no progress for people like me. You could talk as much as you want to. You just talking and saying nothing. And that's all I got to say. And this lady want to talk about dogs. She want, oh, y'all listen.
Thank you.
Bill Wolotek, Danielle Underwood, Alex Rodriguez.
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me? Yeah. I want to thank Councilperson Lanier and Councilperson Miller Anderson for voting against the rezoning of the Lone Pine Golf Course. Your understanding of the issues is exemplary, to say the least. We would like the second reading to result in a majority of council members voting against rezoning.
There you go.
You have listened to the concerns of the residents of Lone Pine and understand the issues. You have heard all the reasons for not rezoning, so it is not necessary to go over them again. It is important that the council not to be controlled or influenced by outside interests. You are doing the right thing for the city by voting down rezoning, as you and we are aware of the dangerous situations and serious problems that rezoning will cause. What I don't understand is not one resident has publicly supported the rezoning. This should have sent a very strong, clear message to City Council. I don't understand why the entire council didn't vote 5-0 the first time against rezoning. I was under the impression the council was here to serve the people, not special interests. Again, thank you, Councilperson Lanier and Councilperson Miller Anderson, for voting the correct way. Keep up the fantastic work. You will not be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle Underwood, Alex Rodriguez, Bryce Graham.
Danielle Underwood, for the record, can you start my time to 3 minutes? Because it's at 1:08, and that's not me. Thanks.
Can you put the microphone to your closer? Thank you.
Well, I'm back again. Haven't been here in a while, and some people in this room might just consider themselves embarrassed by the time I'm done, but I really don't care. You can sit in the room and listen to all I have to say. It's been over a year now that my family was tormented by Riviera Beach. When does it become Riviera Beach's responsibility for all the financials that I had to put forth due to the negligence of your police department? Officer Phillips failed to conduct a proper investigation into Miss Underwood's allegations. Officer Phillips, sitting right there in the corner, failed to gather statements from Miss Underwood, patrons and employees that were in a restaurant at the time of an incident. Officer Phillips failed to ensure that the suspect left the incident location or vicinity with the second suspect. Officer Phillips showed a lack of care for the victim, Mrs. Underwood, and was more concerned about the suspect. Had the victim been Officer Phillips' priority, a more thorough investigation could have taken place and probable cause may have been developed for disorderly conduct, which, if an arrest was made, would have prevented my husband from having to protect his minor special needs child on 13th and Broad Street. But instead, my husband faced arrest from Officer Phillips right there. Officer Phillips' negligence cost my family not only monetary money, but sanity, mental health, which Mr. Lawson, you claim mental health is a big thing. My family's still suffering from mental health due to Officer Phillips' negligence, who's sitting right there. You should be embarrassed by your lack of police activity that you're supposed to be doing. Your code of ethics is not what an officer is. You need to be a social worker. You need to pat the criminals on the back and give them all their gum and candy and commissary. You don't belong on the streets. You have no command presence whatsoever. Due to Officer Phillips' negligence, the city manager agreed that she'll get a slap on the wrist and go to an 8-hour training where you get a 1-hour lunch break and you get this fancy cake and this and that, and they provide you sandwiches. What did my family get? My family cost my husband's reputation, who's a state-certified Florida law enforcement officer in the past, cost my daughter's mental health, and also my own. The city should be ashamed of the police officers like this on the street. They're the ones that give the ladies and the men in blue a bad name. This city should consider what my family has gone through and should consider what mental health, financials, and everything that I have been through. When does it become your responsibility? Because it's been mine for a year.
Thank you.
Alex Rodriguez, Bryce Graham, Larry Dorset.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I sent every single one of you an email about this rubber stamp that we got going on in the city of Riviera Beach. Jonathan Evans, look at me when I'm talking to you. This is IA case number for Tabitha Smith, IA case 2203. I have some concerns here with this IA investigation. First of all, I've been inquiring about this incident since last year. I was lied to by the city of Riviera Beach. There's a signature from the captain on an internal affairs investigation. It was completed October 25th, 2022. Another concern that I have, this incident occurred March 6th, 2022. The IA investigation didn't start till June 16th, 2022. I don't know what kind of police department this is, but 3-month time period for an IA case number to be punched, very funny business. Then I looked at, like I tell you, I look at every press release that's released on the Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
Attorney Wynn.
So, what? Hold on, stop time.
Second, let's not interrupt him.
All right. Can I get those seconds back?
Yeah, give him his seconds back.
Anybody that has knowledge in police tactics and policies, don't listen to the shenanigans about headlights. It is not a forcible felony, robbery, homicide, sexual battery, or arson. There's no city or other city or sheriff department that would tell you they will chase somebody for having their lights off. Don't listen to that shenanigans, Mr. Evans. The city of Boynton Beach made a decision with Mark Sohn, and this 92-page report is on your desk, because I know you just came back from FMLA, and that could have been your child that you just had. And I need you to look at this 92-page report, and I need you to make the right decision, Mr. Evans. In 2017, you did an interview with Wanda Moore, and you stated, because it's on YouTube, if anybody has a concern, you're open to talk to them. I've sent you emails. You have not once reached out to me. This lady needs to be terminated. 105 miles an hour is ridiculous. I don't care if those kids didn't have their lights on. It is not warranted. In closing, we need to change the policy on how IAs are conducted. You even, Mr. Evans, said that you don't trust the IA and you're going to move the IA out of the police department. We need to ensure that officers are getting fair treatment, not disparate treatment, fair treatment. So in closing, I want you to make the right decision, Mr. Evans.
Thank you.
Bryce Graham, Derek Dorsett, Cindy March.
Is Mr. Graham here? All right, who's next?
Derek Dorsett, Cindy March, Chandra Stringer.
Mr. Dorsett?
Good evening. I'm once again here in reference to domestic violence. I was here last time talking about Ms. Carter, who was in a hopefully safe, I believe she's safe, in a better place today. She was in some violence that Riviera Beach got involved with. And I'm here speaking on her behalf and those who go through domestic violence. We know that mental illness is the forerunner of all domestic violence. We also know that domestic violence affects kids and how they respond to others. We also know that 40% of violence occurs in the families of police officers, and that's pretty high. That's statistics. That's real. It not only occurs against women, but it occurs against men. I've been in 2, maybe 3 relationships where I've been abused by a woman. Now, a man can't hit a woman because the law going to put him in jail, but she can fight him. So that's twisted, but that's the way the law is. But hopefully it's changing. Judges are seeing it for what it is, and some of them are going through domestic violence at home, but you just don't hear about it. I am going to be the forerunner to try to reduce, educate, and bring forth some knowledge about domestic violence, what occurs to the homes, communities, and so on and so forth. Domestic violence is a real serious problem. I believe Lawson just had some type of event where it was a mental health event. Yes, sir. I didn't hear of it until the last minute, but we need to do more to make sure that the residents know at least 30 days ahead of these type of events so that others can come and be a part of it. There is a text to 911 service that can be utilized for those who cannot speak while being abused. They could text. And I want to put that out to the viewing audience. This is available. and we must do everything we can to prevent domestic violence. Once again, domestic violence is built around mental illness, and about 70% of Americans are mentally ill. That's a big thing, and it comes from many different areas, generational a lot of times, but that can be broken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy March, Chandra Stringer, Brenda Brown.
I'm Cindy March.
Good evening.
You know, you all get mad when someone like Randy Sherman, when he get called out, he gets upset. But you have to call a spade a spade. You might hate, like I always reiterate, you might hate his temperament, but Tragic knows what he's doing. You all need to learn how to study your dialogue and stop changing the narrative to fit what y'all want to vote yes on, because you're hurting the citizens of Riviera Beach. You're not hurting Randy Sherman's pocket. You're not hurting Evans' pocket. I mean, you all need to get somebody in here who don't know nothing about Riviera Beach and do a real audit. And some of you all might get walked out of here in handcuffs. I'm just calling a spade a spade. Just like I would love to know, y'all have a code enforcement meeting tomorrow, and from my understanding, the letter that I wrote, the letter that was posted on where I stay at, my landlord is supposed to be involved in that meeting. I would like to know, is it a Zoom number where I can zoom in on it? Because to be evicted costs a rusted molded refrigerator, and I'm paying $1,100 a month. It's not acceptable at all. And then I referred my niece behind me, and she have 3/4 of bowel movement in her tub. Yes, all kind of code violations. And I have a text message in my phone where I have to be out the apartment by the 31st of January, and it's not due to not paying rent. She didn't go to the courthouse. She just gave it to me via text message. This is not acceptable. As a person been staying in Riviera Beach for over 30 years, I pay where I live. And if I can pay you $1,100 a month, the least you can do is get me a refrigerator. I even offered to buy my own refrigerator. It's not acceptable. We got more important things in here to do in Riviera Beach than Randy Sherman coming up here with all of these about parks and fire stations. Where's the park at Wells Recreation for our kids? Our kids are lost. That was a good presentation that Mr. Ricky Atkins gave, and I appreciate you, Lanier, for being behind that program, because we need more than just that program, because we are losing our kids. I don't have any kids, but I have helped raise plenty of kids, and I will do it all over again. But like I said, you all got to find decorum within yourself. Don't get mad because Tragic did his homework. Don't come up here and get red in the face because you know you lying and Evan's sitting here covering up for him. These are taxpayers' daughters, and we are getting pushed out the city where we love to live, work, and play because you all have allowed the big developers to come in here and do what they want to do and not pay their fair share. You had somebody in the building department that knew what they was doing, but you fired her wrongly.
Chandra Stringer, Brenda Brown, Joyce Murphy.
Good evening to the Honorable Mayor in his absence, to Leadership Council, Mr. Evans, welcome back, Happy New Year. I want to start off by saying kudos for the beautiful Christmas decorations that was throughout the city. I didn't get a chance to take pictures by any of them, but they were really, really nice. Also, kudos to Mr. Blankenship, Assistant Director Leah Franks, and the staff at the Park and Recreation Department. The MLK Parade this past weekend was phenomenal. And I also want to talk about a few things. We were talking about budgets. I do know probably you've already did your open enrollment, but one of the things I want to make sure that it goes on public record and we take consideration. High deductible insurance is not a win for the city. high deductible insurance for your employees when they cannot afford to go to the doctor because they never make their deductible or cannot get special services, that is not a win. So as you begin looking at your budget and having your budget meetings, please consider where the number one question Councilman Trogic asked, and everybody talked all over it. Look at the spending. You can't talk about expenses on a budget until you look at the spending, the income. So, I mean, the expenses rather than income. So please make sure that that's a priority. The other thing I want to talk about is the MLK Parade. I don't see any representation from the Black Chamber of Commerce here tonight. That's going to take place this Saturday at 7 a.m. at Diane Calloway Complex. Also, I want to find out if the staff had made any adjustments or improvements as it relates to communication with the citizens. How are we going to be telling individuals about meetings, meeting changes, any updates throughout the city? If you don't come across that track, it's hard to remember when meetings are going on because they're canceled at the last minute, they're moved at the last minute, road constructions, none of that stuff that I know of is being communicated in a fair and equitable manner. The last thing, not the last thing, two more things. One, Palm Beach County Day on the Hill is March 7th through March 8th. Is there anything the citizens of Riviera Beach need to be emailing, calling our state representatives on that will make havoc or impact the citizens drastically? And the last thing, Black Chamber of Commerce Day on the Hill is March 27th through the 28th. I would encourage any small business owner, if you're not a member of the Black Chamber of Commerce or Palm Beach County Chamber or North Palm Beach, you need to get connected because they're our voice. And if you want to go on that day, look it up, Black Chamber of Commerce in Tallahassee, March 27th and the 28th. It is a phenomenal experience. They are our voice. There is numbers when we're all together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brenda Brown, Joyce Murphy, Rochelle Baker Hughes.
Good evening, the top of the year to
Good evening.
platform and everyone in the building. Again, I'm addressing something that I previously addressed regarding my lights. Well, not the lighting, but the utilities when it comes to the water, sewage, and trash. On 3 different occasions, I had 3 different situations. The last time that I attended here, the finance guy, Mr. Sherman, he came outside and he talked to me personally, said he was going to look into this. So I'm still having a problem. I paid my bill via the automated system. So every time I'm turning around, it's doubled again. I went to the city of Riviera to find out what is the problem with your technical system because it's still billing me erroneously. So that needs to be looked into. So I went there and I paid my bill. She said, and the clerk that I spoke to, she said, we're having problems with that. Well, if you're having a problem with that, then that needs to be addressed to the public. We need to know about that because I am sure that I am not the only person that's paying their bills via the automated system. Okay? And secondly, my niece had a situation where she lost her driver's license, so she reported it. She resides here in Riviera Beach. So she called, and there was a policeman that came by. I was not there when she was at my house when he came by. I was at work. So she wanted him to take the report so she can go ahead and, and reapply and get her license. Well, the officer got there. She didn't get his name. And like I always tell my family, anytime you talk to anyone, especially law enforcement, you need to get a name. But anyway, he told her that, well, there's not much he could do for her, that she need to just go and try to get it herself. Now, that to me is not acceptable. And thirdly, I also addressed, well, thirdly and fourthly, I addressed the lighting on Gardens Road right off of Blue Heron. There's no lights there at night. It's really, really bad. I mean, visibility is very poor. There's no lighting there. As a matter of fact, there's no lighting down Gardens Road. And also, there was another situation as far as, again, I addressed before about the convenience that we have here in Riviera Beach. We don't have a lot of like nail shops or shopping plazas and things like that. We have to go outside of the city. So that needs to be looked at too, out of all the finance that's being spent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joyce Murphy, Rochelle Baker Hughes, Doretta Polk.
Hi,
Good
Joyce
evening.
Murphy, Lone Pine Estates. I'm notifying you, the voting council members of Riviera Beach, that with a yes vote to change the rezoning of Lone Pine Golf Course from recreational zoning, I will actively be campaigning for anyone who runs against you for re-election to your positions, and I will be participating in all voter registration events in and around Lone Pine Estates and the western end of Riviera Beach to add to the voter base. Thank you so much to the 2 council persons who voted down the rezoning. We need better representation in the city, and the majority of you couldn't care less about your constituents. Elected officials should stay in touch with the needs of their constituents, and most of you pretend to do that with very few surveys and area meetings, when in actuality, you forget anything that was requested by the time you get back to your cars. That's assuming you were paying attention at the time and weren't playing with your phones or laptops, which I personally have experienced, leaving the room, or were actually awake. Each of you are elected by and represent all parts of Riviera Beach.
Thank you.
Rochelle Baker Hughes, Doretta Polk, Terrence Davis.
Hello, my name is Rochelle Baker Hughes. I'm from Lone Pine Estates. I'm back.
Good evening.
I know you haven't seen me since November. Reasons for that, but we won't go into it. So as we wait for the second reading regarding the zoning of the golf course, which I'm hoping we have a date very soon on that, there's a couple of items, because you guys were talking about road impact fees and all that stuff. We still have issues in Lone Pine with potholes and dips in our roads. Couple times, a couple of them have been tried to be fixed, but now they're dipping again. It would be great if the city maintenance department could come out and check all of those. They can call me. I can take them all around the whole neighborhood and show them those. Another item is water pressure, and we've had also a smell in our water. I'm not sure what's going on with that. I know one day I went to turn on my faucet, and I got a trickle in all of my faucets. I don't understand, but then again, yes, I do, because we're on the west end of the city and we're the last. But the water pressure really needs to be looked into, and I don't know what the smell was. I know sometimes it's chlorine, sometimes it's not a good smell, but it would be great if someone from the water department or whatever could come out, check our water for us. I'm not sure what else can be done, but you know, we're talking about adding impact fees onto our taxes. So I would hope that we could have some of these issues taken care of. Just want to say Happy New Year to all of you, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Doretta Polk, Terrence Davis.
Good evening. My name is Doretta
Good
Hawk,
evening.
and welcome back to Evans. Welcome back.
Pull your microphone down.
Okay. What I want to talk about is we're coming into 2023, which have always talked about kindness. Kindness. That's a very, very important verb. We just have to be kind to one another and not shouting, screaming. You can get your point across without that. Another thing, Councilman McCoy, you said we are broke. The city has no money. Okay, if that's a fact. So when these developers come to the CRA and say they want all these millions of dollars, we are broke. Go out and start this contract again. we wouldn't even get revenue on this contract for even 15 years. This lady was talking about the infrastructure. That's all over Riviera Beach. So when you say we are broke, when they come up here for the millions and all the things that we have to do, I just hope that you say to them, we are broke, because we do not have millions of dollars to give these contractors. And what are they coming to the table for to bargain with us? No. Put it out again for bid, and let's start it all over. Because as you say, we are broke. So it's all documented. Everyone heard it. So when the vote comes out, that's what hopefully you two council people will say. No, we don't have the money to fund this. I'm sorry. You all have to look up other ways, because we are broke. And I thank you very much. And let's have a very good year. We have to all work together to make this city what it is. It could be such a beautiful city, which it is, and it could be even beautiful, more beautiful. Let's be kind to one another. Let's stop the shouting, because you can get your point across. You're a very intelligent young man. Don't do this. You all take care.
Thank you.
A Happy New Year to everyone.
Terrence Davis.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
There in his presence, staff, to all the residents and business owners of this wonderful city, Riviera Beach. I will bring great blessings to y'all and Happy New Year. I was looking on the agenda and I saw this fire assessment fee come up. And it makes me think about the pandemic, for what we all just went through and still going through. Not one person went through a pandemic. We all did it together in this country, in this city. Food costs went up, insurance rates went up, everything went up. All costs went up. Now, taxes, property values, let's talk about property values, that went up. So now we got a fire assessment fee for a service that you're already paying for. You're already paying for it. We all are paying for it. In the study, it didn't say that we should be doing it and why. It just says what happens when we do it. So if the study don't say, Riviera Beach, you need to do this entire board, and take into consideration of what the study that you paid for said itself. Because we all are going to benefit or suffer. Prior to me being elected in 2013, I recall that there was money in the budget to pay for 3 fire stations. We just spent $20 million on a building that looks beautiful, and thank you for that. But we took our property off the tax roll, and now you're asking the residents to pay for this overspending. Now, I'm not saying that you're bad or good for the decisions that you made, but I'm saying that there's lessons to be learned when you know the history behind it. Mr. Councilperson McCoy, I'm going to say this much to you. Thank you. I understand your passion. When you put a lot of time and work into something, and you sacrifice time with your children and your family, when people are doing God knows whatever with their own right, and then you come to a meeting and it seems as like you're the only one reading it. But maybe you're not the only one reading it. The question is, do we all understand? And do we listen to each other? And that's something we need to think about. Because domestic violence don't happen by necessarily striking someone. It also happens by not listening. And he's frustrated. We all are frustrated. But I'm asking the residents of this city, the employees of this wonderful city, that we all can do better together. I just ran the State House 94 seat and had a wonderful time talking about the great things that we did in this city. And I'm back home saying that I'm going to be very active with supporting you, and I've been telling you this day one, to make sure that we get things right and do even better. Mr. McCoy, keep doing what you do. If you need help, the folks that complain about your energy, ask them to help you and read with you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
And I support you.
That concludes public comment cards.
All right, Mr. Evans, you have any follow-up on any of that?
Yes, Madam Chair. With respect to the comments on communications, we have been able to fill a very critical role on the communications staff. So thankfully, we're up to 100% as it relates to our staff complement. So we will be putting out information on multiple platforms to ensure that residents know when meeting starts, when things happen, and even allowing for virtual presentations or virtual participation. So just be prepared for a lot of information that will be shared by city administration and the communications staff. There was conversations or discussions about legislative priorities. That item would come before you all to codify the legislative priorities before we do go to Tallahassee to lobby on behalf of the city of Riviera Beach. That item most likely will come to you at your first meeting, but we are already working with our lobbyist, Mr. Sean Pittman, on some projects that we've put forward in previous legislative sessions to see if there's an opportunity to move those items forward. Concerning the billing issues, I believe that that particular computer system glitch has been corrected, and so there should not be any situations there, and I would hope that there was a subsequent conversation with Mr. Sherman. The individual communicated their license, lost license, and I think the chief was having a discussion with them, so hopefully that particular situation is resolved. On Garden Road is a county road, and I've had conversations with Director Johnson and the city engineer, Mr. Bailey, to see if there's anything that we can do to help facilitate whether it's an interlocal agreement between the county and the city for some improvements on that roadway, or the overall maintenance being done by the city of Riviera Beach, because that is such an important roadway in our community, and most times it has some unsightly vehicles that are parked there that cause for some challenges. So that is something that's been an ongoing issue. The Long Pine rezoning meeting, the date has not been set for that, and as soon as we do get that date, we will make sure we canvass the neighborhood, the community, to let them know as to when that particular date is, so there's no confusion about when that meeting will occur. I believe Director Johnson may have had some conversations with persons concerning the potholes in Lone Pine, and we'll look to address those, and the water pressure issue. I'll have some conversations with staff to take a look at what are some issues that may have resulted in that water pressure concern, and that may have been, something that was happening on a construction site that may have impeded the flow of water, but nonetheless, we'll take a look at that. That concludes my comments, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Item 8C.
Mic check. Can you hear me?
Not really. You're low.
Ordinance number 4201, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending ordinance 2977, section 8, entitled Computation of the Amount of the Impact Fee, providing for severability and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Motion to approve ordinance number 4201.
Do we have a second? Second. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I can have the Director of Administrative Services and Finance, Mr. Randy Sherman, to make this presentation.
Again, Randy Sherman, Finance Director. This is the second reading of ordinance number 4201. Again, this is the second of the two impact fee ordinances. The first reading on this ordinance was October 19th of 2022. There have been no changes, and staff recommends approval.
Have any comments or questions from the board?
Yes.
Go ahead.
For the board or from the board?
Either way. You have a comment?
Yes, well, I do have a comment. Thank you. There was somebody that noticed that a budget is just that. It should be budgeted. We were told over 2 years ago that there'd be austerity measures put in place. There's nothing about operations for the last 2+ years have we shaved back on anything. Obviously, personnel is not one of them that we can just really go back and shave back on, but here's the same provision again. What we could possibly be using from our general fund or from our capital fund to do impact fees, we're being asked to now increase impact fees and the formula that goes into impact fees to cover where we should have been funding already. So this is another item that I'm afraid I'm not able to support. And I want to put on the record, since the mayor isn't here, that I am going to encourage him to veto these items.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
No.
Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Item 8D.
Ordinance number 4218, an ordinance adopted by the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Florida, adopting Chapter 18, Taxation, Article 5, Additional Homestead Exemption for persons 65 and older, to provide for additional $50,000 homestead exemption for qualifying persons 65 years of age and older, providing for severability, providing for repeal of laws, conflict, codification, directions to the clerk for the delivery, and an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, there are no public comments on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Motion to approve ordinance number 4218.
Second.
Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, members of the board,
Your mic is not
if I can have the Director of Finance.
working. You're still not working, but we hear you.
I'll pick it up from ordinance 4218. Again, this is the second reading. First reading was on October 19th, 2022. Staff does recommend approval of this, but there is a change, a staff change on this one. The original ordinance, when it was brought forward, had a requirement in Section 6 that a copy of the ordinance be provided to the Palm Beach County Property Appraiser no later than December 1st, 2022. Obviously, that date has passed, so we have changed that date to December 1st, 2023. And I will also add that this will not be effective for the next fiscal year. We missed fiscal year 2024. It is a statutory requirement, this December 1st date, so this would not go into effect until fiscal 25.
Mike?
I didn't hear if you said, did you say we had public comment for this one?
No, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Ms. Evans?
Madam Chair, I did want to communicate with the board since the window, because the board did not have the opportunity to convene to adopt this prior to the date in December. Mr. Sherman and I have had some conversations that we are going to look at providing some relief for our seniors by virtue of some break on the utility side. We just need to have some conversations about how we can look to facilitate that and bring back a program at the utility district meeting to provide some relief that is comparable to this particular item that's before you. So even though there is not a situation where the homestead property owners would see some relief, but we do want to provide for a situation for persons 65 and older to see some benefit associated on their utility bills, but allow for us to build out a program and bring that forward for your consideration.
All right.
Question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Evans, exactly what kind of relief on the utility bill? Because there's a guy that has an issue that's been outstanding for over 2 months where his utility bill, he's being improperly charged for trash. And I will warn you, you guys have about 24 hours or a claim against the city of Riviera Beach, specifically Randy Sherman, is going to be brought for unjust enrichment and conversion. And you're telling me we can give free water services to the town of Mangonia Park. We can give relief to seniors. Meanwhile, we're double charging and robbing our very own residents. Make it make sense to me. This is absurd. I don't mind going forward with the property tax exemptions, but we can't, on one hand, follow a charter specifically set up by the utility district that says we can't give free services. But then on the other hand, we turn around and say we're going to give relief on the utility bill. Meanwhile, we're stealing from over 400 residents, middle-class residents on Congress Avenue. Please take note. It's 24 hours.
Do we have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Mr. Evans, we spoke in the agenda review about notifying the seniors. How are we going to notify the seniors 60, 64 to get registered or notified about this exemption that's coming? Because I know you said that it automatically is assessed for 65 and older homesteaded seniors, but the ones that's going to actually have to sign up for it, what's going to be our process?
Madam Chair, that's something that we have to build out at this particular moment. But that is an exemption that's provided for automatically when the state does provide exemptions. It just happens automatically. I don't think there's any communication or notification mechanism, so it would be something that we would have to create separate and apart. But we can look to see how we can do something based on the roles that the property appraisers, but that's something that we'd have to research and build out.
And then time frame, when would they have to register for that exemption to go into effect?
That's, Mr. Sherman, I don't know if you have that information.
I don't. I want to say that it's by the end of the December every year that you have to file for your exemption, but I would have to check on that.
Anything else? Mr. Lawson?
No, thank you, Madam
So Mr. Evans has nothing on this item on utility bills?
Madam Chair, I previously communicated that that's a program that we would have to bill out. I have to do some research concerning that. So, like I requested, staff is going to be looking at some opportunities and bring that forward for your consideration if there is opportunities.
All right. Anything else for this item? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, thank you.
Item 8E.
Ordinance number 4224, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Florida, repealing in its entirety ordinance number 4198, providing a severability clause, providing a codification clause, and providing an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
We have a motion?
Motion to accept ordinance number 4224.
Second. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I could have the Director of Development Services, Mr. Clarence Sermons, to make his presentation.
Mr. Sermons?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of council. I am before you for this item. It is the second reading of the ordinance repealing the amendment to the MEHOP ordinance. There have been no changes since first reading, and staff does recommend approval of this item.
All right. Any questions or comments from the board?
Just, Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
just Mr. Clarence Sermon, the date that we're going to be bringing it back. I know we spoke about it, but I just wanted to kind of be clear what day we were trying to bring this back to the board.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
Staff would like to have some opportunity to make sure that we do the research that's necessary to bring you back something that is complete. Our intent is to try to bring it back in February, but we have to have some internal conversations and have some discussions with council concerning some components of this, but our hope is to bring it back in February, but we don't have a definitive date. We understand that this is an important priority for the board, but we want to make sure we get it right, and we get it right the last time.
All right. Mr. Lawson, is that it?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Any other questions or comments? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
8F.
Ordinance number 4223, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Florida, repealing in its entirety Section 12-26, prohibition of conversion therapy on minors of Chapter 12, Article 1, offenses and miscellaneous provisions, which makes it unlawful for any provider to practice conversion therapy efforts on minors, regardless of whether the provider receives monetary compensation in exchange for such services, providing a conflicts clause and a severability clause, providing a codification clause, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Motion to approve the resolution. Second.
Dr. Botel made the motion, Ms. Lanier second. Do we have any, I'm sorry, do we have any public comment cards?
Madam Chair, members of the board, there are no public comment cards on this item.
You said, I didn't hear you.
There are no public comment cards on this item.
All right. All right, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, at this time, I'll ask for the City Attorney, Ms. Donwin, to make this presentation.
Thank you. Madam Chair, this item, members of the board, this item is before you on second reading. Again, it's a repeal of the conversion therapy ordinance that was adopted by the council some years ago, and the repeal is based on a change in federal law.
All right, any questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Ms. Wynn, can you elaborate what change occurred, or was there something that occurred that was prompting that we repeal this?
Yes. The 11th Circuit issued a ruling that this was a violation of law, and all of the organizations that adopted prohibition on conversion therapy ordinances had to be repealed.
Clarify, when you said 11th Circuit, what is that?
The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals.
Okay, all right. Were there any other opinions or decisions recently by the 11th Circuit?
Can you repeat that, please?
Did we get anything recently regarding the 11th Circuit? Any kind of opinions?
Yes.
Oh, you want to share with us?
Yes, I did share with you that the 11th Circuit ruled in the appeal of the Lady March Goldwire case. Yesterday afternoon, we received that opinion, and I sent it out to you all this morning.
Okay, thank you. I know I heard 11th Circuit just seemed familiar. I know I heard it or seen it somewhere. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for this item? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chair Muller Anderson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, item 11E.
Resolution number 007-23, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, relating to the provision of fire services, facilities, and programs in the City of Riviera Beach, describing the method of assessing fire service assessed costs against assessed property located within the city, directing the preparation of an assessment roll, authorizing a public hearing, and directing the provision of notice thereof, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do have public comments on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Motion to approve resolution number 007-23.
Second.
All right, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I can have the Director of Finance and Administrative Services to make this presentation.
All right, Mr. Sherman.
Okay. Good evening again, Randy Sherman, Finance Director. Now that Ordinance 4217 has been adopted, which lays out and allows for the city to move forward with the contemplation of a fire assessment fee, the next step in the process is this resolution, which is termed the initial resolution. This is sort of, again, when you think of the process, this resolution will then be sent to a public hearing where we'll take comment, and then the City Council can make the final determination of whether the fire assessment fee goes forward, or if it does go forward, in what format that'll be. Wrong one, Walter. Well, we're looking for the right presentation. Let me go through what this resolution does. is it sets the residential rate at $132. The city could have gone as high as $525, but we're not looking to use any of these dollars for operations. Keep digging, Walter. These dollars are all going to be used for capital to pay for the 4 fire stations. Again, this is the result of a study that I know you've had presentations on multiple times, where they go through and they actually take the fire service calls, the fire service costs, and they allocate that out to different property types. So we're going with the $132 for the residential, which is at the 25% level. We are recommending, again, at the 25% level. There we go. Nick of time. So again, let me back up. A portion of these costs are for fire services, or can be used for the fire services, facilities, and programs. This is not for EMS services and can only be used for fire services and cannot be put in the general fund for any other purpose. Resolution sets out the fire service as of October 1 of 2022. And then again, because we're only funding 25% of the program through the fire service, the city is responsible for coming up with legally available city revenues to pay for all of the fire services. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the single-family residential rate, if we maximized it, would be $525. That is not staff's recommendation, but these are the maximum rates. So a multifamily resident would be at $489, and then commercial, industrial, and institutional all come out on a per square foot basis, not on a equivalent unit basis. So what is being recommended by staff, again, is the 25% level, $132 for single family, $123 for multifamily, $18 a square foot for commercial, 6 cents for industrial and warehouse, and 19 cents for institutional. Further, this resolution does provide for a full exemption of government-owned property. So, for example, Palm Beach County School Board would not be paying this fee. It provides for an 80% exemption for institutional property that is tax exempt. So again, as you're talking about, any entity that does get tax exemption, such as a church, would only be paying 20% of the costs. And we did put in a hardship exemption of $82. So to qualify for the hardship exemption, you would pay $50 based on the way this resolution has been drafted. As the city manager mentioned, we have set out community meetings for February 2nd, 6th, and 9th. We're going to do those in the fire stations, and I will jump over to that flyer in 1 second. And then this final resolution would come back for a public hearing on February 15th of 2023. If this is approved tonight, there is a mailing that is required to go to every property owner by mailed out by January 25th, speaking to this meeting. And then we will also be mailing out this notification about the community meetings. So on February 2nd, we're at Station 87, February 6th, Station 88, and then February 9th, we'll be at Fire Station 86. And again, just to educate and talk about, again, the uses in the plan and the program. And I can take any questions that you may have.
All right, hold on, I think we have public comment.
Terrence Davis.
Terrence Davis.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Just watching the presentations. This time, we're just at a time where we just got a lot of questions on the presentations that's been requested for the dates for the presentations. My concern is, why don't we do the presentations prior to this item being chosen to vote upon? We have been asking residents to come before us for beautiful pictures, beautiful presentations, but this is a serious matter that you're asking the residents to partake in. I think that this should be an opportunity as a workshop, then take it to the residents, then bring it back for a vote, so they can be well informed prior to you making a decision. A lot of times folks don't understand, hey, why you voted, but now you're asking, then you got to go back and do this, discussing the rates, about negotiations. But let's bring our folks on with the process. You talk about money in the city. What impact does this have on our bond capacity? How much money do we have left from the prior budget that was budgeted already for the fire stations that we had budget back in 2010, 11, 12, and 13, and 14? What was that total budget and where we are going forward? One question I also do have is, who's sponsoring this legislation? Where is this coming from? Who particularly is sponsoring this legislation? Where is it coming from? And just keep in mind, we all going through a lot, but this is something that should have brought forward as a presentation operation so we can go to the fire stations, go to the gymnasiums, go to the facilities prior to you guys being asked to vote tonight. I think it's unfair to you as well to be asked to vote for something before even having a complete discussion with your residents about this whole process. So please take that in consideration. Do the workshops like this being scheduled, then maybe come back later for a vote so that folks can be well informed on what questions to ask you. They well informed on it prior to you voting and negotiating it if you choose to move forward. I'm asking that you don't at this time, but give folks an opportunity to understand and learn more about what's going on. They may go with it, they may not. But the fact is they're going along with you in the process of being educated with this process. This ain't my first time hearing this. I've heard this 2 other occasions. And I had a problem with it the way it was done. And it's only fair to you and the residents and the employees to understand the impacts on salaries, the impacts on the budget, because police and fire, you're going to be going through negotiations. All they see is a whole bunch of money being approved, but don't know the restrictions associated with a special district. You know, everyone can't benefit from such special district. You just stated, you're going to focus on capital projects only. EMS cannot be funded with this process. So just think about that. All right, Terrence Davis.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes public comment.
Mr. Lawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Councilman Davis. Those questions were arised earlier when we discussed the charrettes that we're hosting for these assessments. Can you be clear, either Mr. Evans or Mr. Sherman, what are we going to be addressing at these community charrettes on 2nd, 6th, and 9th?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
We're going to go through the overall financial condition of the city. We're going to talk about operational needs for fire services. We're going to talk about the conditions of the facility. We're going to walk them through the exhaustive process that got us to this that took years and bring the public up to speed as to how do we got to this particular juncture. Then we're going to answer any questions that the public may have as a result of that. We're also going to take them on tours of the facilities and talk about all components. So it is intended to be a free-flowing dialogue. And I do recall that there was some sessions that we had with the community concerning fire stations and fire station facilities when we were contemplating the relocation of Station 86 on the island. So we've had community meetings concerning the conditions of the facilities. We've had multiple budget conversations about how do we look to fund these facilities. And so this is an opportunity for the public to get some additional answers and questions. And then we bring all that information back to you also. Every and anything that the community wishes to talk about for fire services and the assessment in and itself, we're going to talk about. So there's not anything that's off the table. So we plan to use all 2 hours that's provided for in those meetings.
Chair.
Hold on. That's it, Mr. Hudson?
Follow up, Madam Chair. And to that very point, Mr. Evans, that's the reason I didn't support Ordinance 4217, because these charrettes should have happened prior to us establishing a procedure for imposing this fire assessment, or even for setting an amount. We haven't had the discussion with the residents, and we haven't really educated them on this process. So I think we've put the cart before the horse by going out, setting a rate, putting a process in place, and not having the due process of educating the residents and telling them what's going on and why there's an additional need, so that we're not receiving this backlash as the electeds, because now residents are going to find out about it. And I don't think that those 3 sessions just at those fire stations are enough. I think we need to implement, if we're going to do this, we need to do a mailer. We need to do a survey. Do you support a fire assessment? Yes or no? Outlining what a fire assessment is. We need to make sure that we're properly educating all of the residents, because we're adding a large debt to their annual bill, and some residents just can't truly afford that. So I would actually ask that we hold off on approving this resolution until we've had these community charrettes. Give the residents an opportunity to weigh in, to be fully informed, and then we go bring this item back to the table and have this discussion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Dr. Botel?
Thank you. Mr. Evans, if I might address the city manager, Madam Chair. Mr. Evans, I had a community meeting about maybe a year and a half ago, where we had about a 2-hour presentation from Chief Curd on this very topic, and he outlined all of the reasons why we need to have this fire assessment, and he outlined the potential costs to the taxpayers. Were there other meetings like that around the city at that time?
I would have to defer to Chief Curd, but I do believe, even as part of our reimagined sessions, there was meetings concerning fire assessment and fire facilities, and we did talk about it pretty extensively in budget processes. Chief, if you want to provide some perspective.
Yes, I wouldn't be able to give the exact dates, but we've had multiple sessions. I know some of them were at the Clean and Safe Center. We've had some at our fire stations. We've had several conversations as we've been going through the need for stations here. So I know there's been multiple opportunities where we've talked about the need for stations, and we are at the point now where it appears that the funding of these stations is what's in question. So this is just that next step in the evolution of, we know we need the stations, it's evident that the stations were needed, and now we're at the point of funding.
And Madam Chair, if I may, the process for the establishment of a special assessment is outlined in statute, and so we have followed the statute. The components concerning these meetings is not a requirement per the statute, but we're doing it because we want to make sure that the public has an opportunity to hear specifically about the assessment, and there will be a mailer. There will be information that will be provided to every property owner in the city of Riviera Beach concerning the proposed special assessment, as well as when the public hearing date is as well. So there will be an opportunity that all the properties in the city will receive notifications concerning the special meeting, or the public hearing concerning the potentiality of imposing a fire assessment. And so we are working with a consultant on the communications pieces to get as many people at those meetings to get a good cross-section of the community so they can give us their opinion on that and then bring that back before the board for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. And I think that this should come as no surprise to anyone. Therefore, I think we probably had over 100 people at my quarterly town hall meeting when this was addressed. And I would have hoped that other commissioners would have had similar meetings in their own districts. But thank you for that information.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that, we have been talking about this fire assessment for at least 2 years. I think the first budget hearing or meeting that we had about this 2 years ago was, should we even pursue it? And it was brought to us that if you want to pursue it, then we can, pursue this, show you what the financial impact is. If you're going to talk about charrettes in community meetings, you have to know what the impact will be. And I think a lot of times, when we had our town halls and community meetings, we talked about this very subject. What happens is that, 2 years ago, we said, let's move forward with this. It was brought to us that do you or do you not want to move forward with something like this? And the council said, yes, let's just see what this looks like. And I think that we're at the point where we're seeing what this looks like.
And we need to go to the public at this point to show that this is what we found out, this is what we've done. We've came up with the financial impact of what this looks like, because if you're going to have meetings about it, you have to bring people something. You have to say, this is what we've worked on, this is what we've come up with, and it does not mean that this item is going to be a done deal. This is just saying that this is authorizing public hearing meetings and saying, listen, this is what we've come up with. This is how this looks. This is how it's going to play out. So now, public, what do you think about this? And so the public can easily say, no, we don't want to do that. Easily. We can easily say no. But I think that we, 2 years ago, came out and gave the opportunity just to look at this and see where this would go. So I'm certainly in favor of it because I want to know more about it. We've had meetings about it, but, you know, the meetings that you have with the public are much more engaging. So, yeah, I want to make sure that, you know, the public knows what is happening, because now we can bring them something. So, yes, I agree with that.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And that is my concern, Councilwoman Lanier, that the public knows. We're doing community charrettes to discuss what the impact is, and we just instilled a fee assessment to them. We've had discussions about it, but the community charrettes, thank you, Councilwoman Botel, for having your 100 people, but the other 38,600 people that need to be informed about it, we need to make sure that they know. And just over 3 weeks from now, we'll be having charrettes and making a decision in less than 30 days. I don't think that gives enough time for the residents to put in their insight, and that's why I want to make sure that notices are sent out and they're properly educated, because come the first meeting in February, they'll have an additional 132 on their bill, and a lot of residents just as of tonight found out that they're going to have an additional assessment of $132. So I'm not sure if that's giving residents enough time to know, and that's where my concern is, making sure that we've done our due diligence and we've reached out to them in a timely fashion, because we have not. These conversations should have been had with the amount that we're setting for the last 6 months. You said we've talked about it for 2 years. Residents should have been engaged for those 2 years about what the assessment's going to be, what is palatable for our community, and if they even want it. Because right now it's being forced down their throat versus just going forward, because we know there's a need, but we've taken on a can that's been kicked down the road for 20 years. So we understand we're making these tough decisions, and we have to make these tough decisions, but we have to make them with the residents first and foremost. And this is only giving them, I'm just hearing about these dates tonight, 3 weeks to be notified about a assessment that will be added on their bill in the next coming year or so. So that's where, if we're going to move forward and this board decides to vote a majority to move forward with this assessment, I'm just asking staff to go above and beyond. Having meetings just at the fire stations, I don't think is sufficient. Reaching out to the churches, doing the mailers, putting out email blasts, making sure all communications, so we can touch as many of these homeowners, as many of these property owners that are going to be affected as possible, and getting their feedback. Because, colleagues, we want to have their feedback and input for adding to this assessment.
How many people here?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Evans, I'm sorry, Mr. Sherman, Section 8.
Sorry, which section?
Section 8 of the resolution, and I want to make sure I understand what exactly this means. There's no assessment imposed upon government properties. However, government property that is owned by federal mortgage entities such as VA and HUD shall not be exempt from the fire assessment. So specifically,
right, so if you have the federal building, right, that's owned by the federal government, but if you have a property that's owned by FHA, you know, Fannie Mae, those types, those aren't exempt. That's what that's saying. They may own it and have the mortgage on it, but it's really not federally owned.
okay.
All right. Any other questions, comments?
Well, I'm sorry.
Oh.
You mind?
No, I thought you were done.
Well, you know, I guess that could have been written a bit clearer. Sort of like here in the States, I'm sure it's federally backed, or at least their dollars come through from some sort of tax credit program. But I could understand that. However, what I'm not exactly clear on is section 11, which speaks to the hardship. How much money have we set aside for an allowance, and what's the plan to do that for a hardship? How much is finance setting aside for allowance for hardship? And if you have to determine that at a later point, that's cool, but I got another question.
I don't, but I think I brought the folder back.
Because
to my desk.
specifically, the reason I brought this up
Yeah.
is because when you read this section of the resolution, it says that the hardship shall be paid from other available funds, I guess other city funds. And, you know, you create this situation which is still kind of ambiguous, especially because the same gentleman that relied on the district's policy regarding how we handle utility bills, when we have ambiguity in the bills, you bring it to the utility district board, but then you still don't have a hearing to address that. But in this situation, regarding hardship, if someone wanted to apply, it appears that the manager is going to set up some sort of qualification on how somebody low income qualifies. What does that mean to be low income? And why would we not tie it to something that is readily identifiable, such as 20% below the federal poverty level, instead of making it something that the manager now has to determine? It almost seems like something that could be changed at any point.
I don't disagree with you on that. You know, I mean, that can be a change that we can put in the final.
But
if you'd like
help
to
me
do
out,
that.
Mr. Sherman. This says residential property owners who meet the definition of low-income persons as annually defined by HUD. Okay, so if someone qualifies as being low-income by HUD, that's one thing. But then it goes on to say applications for hardship assistance shall provide written documentation satisfactory to the city manager in order to qualify for such assistance. I mean,
Well, and I'm not sure, you know, everybody understands how the, or is, you know, how the utility program works. But they go over to the, you know, customers go to the utility and they apply. They bring in their paperwork, they have to qualify, and they go through that process. So we would see the same type of situation here, you know, but again, until you have this in place, I think, you know, the manager's got to, you know, come up with whatever process he wants to use for that. But I would assume, you know, it may even be that, listen, you qualify for the utility program, you qualify for this program. You know, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people in both programs. But if I can just real quick go back, so for the buy down, the estimated buy down is $482,000. That's for government, institutional, and, you know, that's what's built into the form. Now that may be high, may be low, but, you know, but again, just like the utility program, when we give those discounts, we do, you know, make up that difference. The utility district doesn't eat those dollars.
I understand that.
Okay.
I understand that. But, Mr. Sherman, you know, what's not clear is if we already established that this is for low-income persons who have to be the homestead owner, in many cases, no different than what the ordinance we just passed, if they're getting a homestead exemption plus an additional exemption from the county, why do we now need to make them go through all of this stuff to save $80? You got to include name of all the owners of the residential property, all of the sources of income to demonstrate that they're low income. I mean, they're already presumably receiving this low income exemption from the county. Why do we now require all of this extra stuff in 15 days? I mean, we're talking about $80. It's going to take way more in staff time.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you're right, that may be. What are the forms we require? If you have this and this, you qualify. You know, I mean, but that's got to be built out. You know, we put the exemption, and we want to make sure that there was at least a provision for an exemption. Chose the $82. That number obviously can change, can make it the whole 132 if you want to. But that program needs to be built out. I don't disagree.
Okay, I appreciate your explanation. I think it's kind of counterintuitive because I think that those questions need to be clarified, but I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to support this as well.
All right. Any other questions or comments? We did the public comment already, right? All right. Any other? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Boto?
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson?
No.
Councilperson McCoy?
No.
Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Excuse me. Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sherman.
Thank you.
Discussion by city manager?
Yes, Madam Chair. First and foremost, I want to thank the board as well as staff for your support.
They got to get you a better mic since you're back.
Yeah. I don't know if there's that much talking that was happening from this seat particularly, so that's probably why the mic shorted out. But nonetheless, I want to thank staff for their support as well as the board's support during, the most special moment in me and my wife's marriage, welcoming our little baby girl, Lily. She's not too little. She's 2 months old and she's 16 pounds, so she's a lot to hold on to. But I can tell you that it is so special, and I can't wait to be able to grow up or see her grow up as I grow older. But I do want to thank everyone for their support and their well wishes and the gifts and the Pampers and the like. It's certainly been something that's been very life-changing for me and my wife, but we're all happy as a family. The boys are happy to have a little sister, and I'm happy to have somebody that's hopefully going to keep me out of a nursing home when I do get older. But certainly one of the things I can tell you from this moment, it does make me look at things profoundly different. It makes me look at things that may have not been a priority for me. And I think one of the proudest moments is to be able to say, this is her hometown, right? This community will always have a special place in my family's heart, as it is the birthplace of my daughter. And so I want you to know that I come with a restored perspective. I come with a commitment to do what's absolutely necessary to move our community forward. We may not agree on everything. We may not see things from staff's perspective, but we also need to learn how to work together collectively for the betterment of this community. I think a lot of people wanted to see us work on moving things forward, to be the board of change, to be the staff of change, and I really do believe that we still have that task in front of us. And so we are going to be making some changes. We are going to be moving some things forward. We are going to be addressing some of the concerns that the residents have, as well as the board, and really see a situation where they can be proud of the government that serves them at all aspects of government services. So I do want to thank everybody for their commitment to staying locked in and looking forward to a prosperous and eventful 2023. One of the things that I do want to have some conversations with the board is kind of what your legislative priorities and things that you want to see accomplished. So I will be looking to schedule individual meetings with you, but then also I think it's important for us to get together collectively to have a retreat to talk about how do we look to address some of the challenges that we have going forward. And so my office will be reaching out to schedule those meetings here in short order. But thank you for the support. Thank you for your commitment to this community. And to the staff, thank you all for what you've been able to do in my absence. And, we're going with the mantra that the standard is the standard. We will exceed the standard. We'll never go below the standard, but we're going to work really hard to make the board proud. And in return, we ask that you provide us, honest, constructive feedback, and we work together collectively to move our community forward. And hopefully Lily's not up watching this meeting because it is past her bedtime, but she's a night owl, so I look forward to seeing her when I get home. And to my lovely wife, thank you so much for everything that you've been able to provide to us and just being the rock of our family. I couldn't do some of the things I can do without her support, and so it's been a blessing, and I'm so excited about what the next chapter of my life looks like. And so with that being said, Madam Chair, I'm glad to be back, and thank you again for the opportunity to serve in this capacity and to serve this community. That concludes my comments, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Discussion by city attorney.
Yes, Madam Chair. I have, and welcome back, Mr. Evans. I have the announcement of 2 closed executive sessions. Pursuant to Florida Statute 286.0118D, public meetings and records, and in a desire to obtain advice concerning litigation, I am requesting a time that the City Council is available for a closed executive session in the matter of Lady March Goldwire versus the City of Riviera Beach. Appellate case numbers 21-13871 and 21-13872. Outside counsel, along with the City Attorney, is seeking a closed-door session with counsel to discuss the current appellate litigation. And therefore, if you are available, a closed session will be held on January 23rd, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. at the City of Riviera Beach Public Works Training Room, 1481 West 15th Street on the first floor, Riviera Beach, Florida, 33404.
Ms. Lynn,
Yes, ma'am.
can we make it 6 o'clock?
Yes. Therefore, a closed-door session will be held on the January 23rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. The same address just repeated in the case of Lady March Goldwire versus City of Riviera Beach. The persons in attendance will be myself, Appellate Counsel Denise Blue, Mayor Ronnie Felder, members of the City Council, City Manager Jonathan Evans, and a court reporter authorized by the state of Florida. Again, the subject matter will be restricted to the current appellate litigation in this matter. And the second announcement is, again, pursuant to Florida Statute 286.0118D, public meetings and records, and in a desire to obtain advice concerning litigation, I'm requesting a City Council convene a closed executive session in the matter of Fane Lozman versus City of Riviera Beach, case number 22-CV-80118-Smith, S-M-I-T-H. The City Attorney, along with the outside counsel, would like to discuss the current litigation in this matter, again on Monday, January 23rd, 2023, at 6:30 p.m. Again, at the City of Riviera Beach Public Works Training Room, 1481 West 15th Street, first floor. In the case of Fane Lozman versus City of Riviera Beach, those persons in attendance will be myself, Special Counsel Andrew Bauman and or Amy T. Petrick, Mayor Ronnie Felder, members of the City Council, City Manager Jonathan Evans, and a court reporter authorized by the state of Florida. Again, the session will be restricted to the current litigation in this matter. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. City Council committee reports. Statements by the Mayor and City Council. Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to kind of bring to the board's attention SOS Band. They're coming up on a trip to London, London Band Week, and it is going to be a huge event. A lot of those kids are going to be representing the City of Riviera Beach and other communities in Palm Beach County. They are actually hosting their gala. Thank you, Mr. Evans, for supporting and partnering with them to do this gala at the marina and make sure that we can actually support this event to get these kids to London. Those kids are going to have an amazing trip, and they're going to be representing the City of Riviera Beach. So if we can possibly meet with the individuals, with the band director, the parents, just to give them as much support as possible. And all residents that are listening, just please, if you can support the SOS Band on this trip to London. Monday, we hosted the Restoring the Village community event over at Cunningham Park and had a great turnout. Close to 400 parents and kids were in attendance. Thank you, Councilman McCoy. Thank you, Mayor Felder, for attending and all the staff. It was a great turnout. We were able to address and talk about the stigma of mental health in our community. We had representatives from organizations all over the county. NAMI was there, and they're looking to partner with the city as we build out a potential focus group and a task force in regards to mental health and stomping out mental health and mental illness in our community. So again, thank you to Chief Kerr, Chief Josh Lewis, Mr. Evans and staff for being a support for that event, because I think that's something that we as a community really have to pay special attention to and focus on together. So thank you, colleagues, and Thank you, Mr. Evans, and welcome back, Mr. Evans.
Mr. McCoy?
Yeah, I just got a message that there's, I guess the feed went out, Mr. Stevens. So, Mr. Evans, and I guess I should have said this on the last item, but, you know, I really am bothered that we sit here and discuss all of these increases in tax and special assessments, and we do nothing to try to curb spending. You know, me and my staff person have taken notice of deliberate waste in this organization. We have every single tax since we've started budget discussions be considered to be raised. Every single fee has been considered to be raised. And if we didn't raise it, it's because some kind of way we ran out of time. But yet still, if you go over to Singer Island and you look at the water faucet at the park, we're wasting over 400 gallons a day. And that's been going on for several months. So, Mr. Evans, you mentioned the standard. Well, I can tell you what I think about the standard. Around here, the bar is pretty low. So I think any improvement will be great, because clearly it seems that we don't care. Everything is free in this organization. And until people are not able to maintain employment or go through furloughs, then we'll recognize. So we put a message out 2 years ago about austerity. I've not seen it. We can give a $550,000 reprieve to the town over. Meanwhile, we're raising all of the taxes in this city. It doesn't make sense. So you're right. We have to raise the standard, but I think anything up is going to be great because the bar is pretty low at this point. And I think we're making it even worse by raising all of these taxes, certainly without even giving the people the opportunity to weigh in on this. That's all I have.
Dr. Botel?
No, thanks. I don't have much of a voice.
I didn't hear. What did you say?
I said, no, thanks. I don't have much of a voice.
Okay. Chair Pro Tem.
Just wanted to say that as a reminder, the grand opening for the JFK multi-purpose space is January 21st at 11 a.m. Operation No Food Gap, which is the entity that is working and building our community garden, I shouldn't say community garden, our urban farm, has been on the radar of many counties throughout Florida since our inception, in partnership with their partnership with the City of Riviera Beach. Just so you're aware, in addition to Palm Beach County officials, stakeholders, and funders, the grand opening will be heavily attended by Miami-Dade Mayor's Office and other key personnel. They are looking at Riviera Beach's urban farm as a model. There is this particular model has been on the radar of many counties in Florida since its inception. Food insecurity is a major problem, and municipalities are searching for creative ways to engage, empower, and educate residents of underrepresented areas. So we are having this on Saturday morning just to showcase not only just the urban farm, but now our partnership with the school board and JFK in terms of expanding the urban farm. It is going to be a spectacular event, and we're happy to be used as a model for urban farming in Florida. Second of all, the Palm Beach County Housing Development, I think they're called the Housing, Palm Beach County has provided an affordable housing dashboard where residents and community stakeholders can set up, community stakeholders can see coming developments. Currently, 7 municipalities are shown, and I'm elated to say that Riviera Beach is one of them. The dashboard displays 140 units in pre-development and 79 under construction. So it is, if you want to know, too, what is happening, because we also have these types of information on our website, but Palm Beach County is also showcasing other municipalities as well as Riviera Beach in terms of affordable housing and what's happening with it. And I also wanted to say to my colleague, Mr. McCoy, he's gone, that a lot of times when we're having these discussions at the council level, talking to staff and to other colleagues in a derogatory, bullying way is not how you do business. We can agree and disagree, and we can certainly ask the staff and tell the staff that we disagree with what they are presenting. But there's a way in which you talk to people and how you interact with people, because, you don't have people to agree with you, does not mean that, number one, that we're not reading the materials that we're provided. It does not mean that we don't know what we're doing. It means that the information that we have, the information that we have been provided has been sufficient for us. And because you say that is not sufficient for you, that is for you, not for us. So I just want to, start the new year out where we can talk to people as human beings, and not because we get angry or because we feel like someone is not agreeing with you, that you're going to threaten to sue, and you're going to just talk to individuals in such a way that it diminishes them. And also, you talk to people, like you're trying to tear them down. There's just a way that you talk to individuals, talk to humans when you're interacting with them. And I want to make sure that as we're going into this new year, that we practice that. And as one of our residents said, we have to practice kindness. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was asked to pass this message and save the date. Sojourners with Healing Hearts, Inc. have collaborated with Boca Raton Regional Hospital to bring the Pressel Mammo Van, where they're doing free mammograms on Saturday, January 28th, from 9 to 2 p.m. at the Pentecostal Church of God at 1289 West 28th Street in Riviera Beach. The screening mammograms are for patients 35 and older, and you have to schedule an appointment. They're not taking any walk-ups. To make your appointment, call 561-955-3167 or go online to www.brrh.com/mammovan. So to bring your copies of your previous mammogram if you have it, and they get the results back within 2 days. And it is free, being paid for by Sojourners with Healing Hearts. And I do want to say welcome back, Mr. Evans. And I know you missed all of our late night meetings.
I forgot about Mr. Evans. Welcome back.
We're trying to do better.
Welcome back, Mr. Evans.
And I want to say thank you to the staff and everyone that was involved with the parade. We heard a lot of great things. It was just absolutely too cold. I couldn't stay out there for the whole thing, but I heard it was a very long one and people enjoyed it as much as they could in the cold weather. And hopefully me and Dr. Botel will get rid of whatever it is that we have so that we'll be 100%, but it's something out there that's crazy that doesn't want to leave. If we have nothing else, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.